Hey everyone, welcome to Reality TV News Update, the place where we bring you the latest updates, fun moments, and behind-the-scenes stories you won't want to miss. The doors of the jury house opened slowly under the bright coastal sun as season 27 of Big Brother reached a turning point that fans had waited weeks to witness. For the first time, viewers were given an unlocked look at the emotional and unpredictable space where evicted house guests processed the game in real time. Rachel arrived first, with her signature confidence still glowing even after a blindsiding exit. The air felt heavy with unfinished business as she stepped inside, knowing she would soon be joined by others who once called her ally and some who called her enemy. The jury house was no longer a quiet retreat. It was about to become a storm of truth, reflection, and explosive confrontation. Rachel walked into the living room with slow, deliberate steps, as if she were still in the Big Brother house, measuring every move. Her suitcase rolled behind her while ocean light spilled through wide glass windows. She took in the silence and exhaled, knowing it would not last long. The walls were decorated with photos of fallen house guests, each one frozen in time from a very different moment. Rachel placed her bag down and laughed to herself softly. She spoke about how strange it felt to no longer be watched by cameras every second, yet still feel the weight of the game. For the first time, she did not need to perform. She only needed to wait. Not long after, the quiet was broken by the arrival of Will. The moment he entered the house, the energy shifted immediately. Will carried the smile of someone who had survived chaos, but also the weight of someone who had betrayed and been betrayed. The tension between them was instant and undeniable. Their eyes met across the room and neither spoke for several seconds. The history between them did not require words. In the game, they were once aligned, then turned into rivals in one decisive week that reshaped the season. Now, in the jury house, they were forced to face that history without the shield of strategy. The first conversation came carefully. Will broke the silence by acknowledging that neither of them expected this reunion to happen so soon. Rachel responded with a calm tone that masked deeper frustration. She said the game had a way of pulling masks off, whether players were ready or not. Will nodded and admitted his move against her was both necessary and painful. For the first time, he said out loud that the decision haunted him since the night she walked out the door. The jury house did not offer safety through competition or alliances. It only offered truth. As the first few days passed, the two settled into an uneasy rhythm. They cooked meals together out of necessity and sat by the pool in long stretches of quiet reflection. Every discussion about the game reopened emotional wounds. Rachel spoke openly about how she had trusted Will when the numbers were tight and survival meant everything. She described the night of her eviction in vivid detail and how the betrayal felt less like a game move and more like a personal loss. Will listened without interrupting, unable to deny the pain in her words. He admitted his fear of becoming expendable had driven him to act before she could act first. The jury house did not offer safety through competition or alliances. It only offered truth. As the first few days passed, the two settled into an uneasy rhythm. They cooked meals together out of necessity and sat by the pool in long stretches of quiet reflection. Every discussion about the game reopened emotional wounds. Rachel spoke openly about how she had trusted Will when the numbers were tight and survival meant everything. She described the night of her eviction in vivid detail and how the betrayal felt less like a game move and more like a personal loss. Will listened without interrupting, unable to deny the pain in her words. He admitted his fear of becoming expendable had driven him to act before she could act first. The unlocked footage revealed how the jury house stripped away the illusion of control that defined the main house. There were no competitions to prepare for and no ceremonies to hide behind. Every emotion had nowhere to go but outward. Rachel experienced waves of anger followed by quiet sadness. Will struggled with guilt mixed with relief that his own fate was now sealed as a juror rather than a hunted player. Both realized that the jury phase was not an ending, but another chapter of the game, one governed by memory and judgment rather than power. As new jurors arrived, the house transformed into a living record of the season. Each new player brought fresh information that reframed past events. Alliances once seen as unbreakable were exposed as fragile. Promises once believed as fact were revealed as convenient tools. Rachel and Will often found themselves on opposite sides of these evolving narratives, each interpreting the truth through their own wounds. Group discussions became emotionally charged as jurors debated whose gameplay deserved respect and whose moves crossed moral lines. The final winner was no longer just a future possibility. It became a looming responsibility that weighed heavily on every conversation. One evening, the tension between Rachel and Will reached its breaking point. After a heated group debate over loyalty versus survival, Rachel confronted Will directly in front of the others. She asked him if he would make the same move again, knowing the damage it caused. The room went silent as he considered the question. Will stood slowly and said that the truth terrified him. He said the game had changed him in ways he never expected. After a pause, he admitted he would still make the move because in the moment, he was playing to win, but he would carry the cost of that decision long after the season ended. Rachel listened with tears forming, yet she nodded, accepting the honesty even if it did not heal the pain. The unlocked moments also showed quieter sides rarely seen in the competition environment. Rachel spent early mornings walking alone near the shore collecting her thoughts. She spoke about life outside the game and how Big Brother magnified both strength and insecurity. Will was often seen writing in a notebook, reflecting on the season and his own motivations. In those private moments, both players revealed vulnerability that had been hidden behind strategy for weeks. The jury house became a place of emotional reckoning rather than performance. As the possibility of reconciliation emerged, time softened some of the sharper edges between Rachel and Will. They began to speak more openly about who they were outside the game. Rachel shared stories of the pressures she faced as a returning player and the burden of expectations she carried from the start. Will revealed insecurities about proving himself among stronger personalities. These conversations did not erase the betrayal, but they transformed it into understanding. The audience watching Unlocked witnessed two rivals slowly rediscover their humanity beyond the game. The arrival of later jurors intensified the responsibility placed on Rachel and Will as early members. Their opinions began to shape how newcomers viewed the remaining house guests. Every story told influenced perception. Every emotional recounting shifted the collective judgment. Rachel realized that her pain could color the future of the game, and she wrestled with that power. Will feared that his actions would be judged not only by Rachel, but by the entire jury as the full story unfolded. The jury house became both a courtroom and a confessional. As finale night drew closer, the tone of the house changed again. The earlier anger gave way to reflection and even humor. Late-night laughter replaced earlier arguments as jurors bonded over the shared madness of the experience. Rachel and Will were now able to joke together about small game moments and strange habits from the main house. Fans saw a version of them that would never have existed without the forced isolation of the jury stage. The rivalry that once fueled tension evolved into cautious respect. In one of the most emotional unlock scenes, Rachel and Will sat together watching a storm roll across the ocean. Rachel spoke about forgiveness and how difficult it was to separate the person from the move. Will responded by apologizing, not as a player, but as a person. He acknowledged that strategy did not excuse the emotional harm caused. The moment was quiet and unscripted and deeply human. It reminded viewers that beyond the competitions and votes, the game also leaves lasting emotional imprints. As the jurors prepared for the final vote, the responsibility of their role became undeniable. Every conversation now had weight. Rachel evaluated each finalist with a sharp yet fair lens, balancing strategy, loyalty, and manipulation. Will approached the decision with intense self-scrutiny, questioning what kind of gameplay he truly wanted to reward. Their earlier conflict sharpened their awareness of the cost of winning. Neither wanted to crown a winner based solely on dominance. They wanted meaning behind the victory. The first look at the jury house closed with a montage of reflection, laughter, and unresolved emotion. Rachel stood on the balcony looking out toward the horizon, while Will sat beside her in shared silence. They no longer needed words to acknowledge everything that had happened between them.
The jury house had changed both of them in ways the main house never could. It stripped away illusion and forced confrontation with truth. Big Brother 27 Unlocked did more than reveal unseen moments. It redefined the meaning of eviction and victory. Through Rachel and Will, viewers witnessed the emotional aftermath of strategy and the quiet cost of ambition. The jury house was not just a waiting room for the finale. It was a crucible where players faced the echoes of their choices and learned who they truly were beyond the game. As the season moved toward its final chapter, fans were left with a deeper understanding of the human price behind every vote. Rachel and Will entered the jury house as rivals, carrying betrayal and regret. They emerged as individuals changed by reflection, accountability, and shared experience. Their journey proved that even in a game built on deception and strategy,
the doors of the jury house opened under a bright sky as the unlocked cameras captured the first quiet moments of a space that would soon be filled with memory, emotion, and judgment. Rachel stepped inside as the first juror of the season, carrying the weight of her eviction on her shoulders. The silence was heavy and unfamiliar after weeks of chaos inside the Big Brother house. She looked around the wide rooms and the ocean light pouring through the windows and realized the game had changed forever. Rachel set her bag down and took a long breath. There were no competitions to prepare for and no alliances to protect. There was only reflection and waiting. She spoke to the cameras about how strange freedom felt after living inside the rules of the house for so long. She admitted the betrayal that sent her to jury still burned in her chest. The name that echoed in her mind was Will. Not long after, the calm was broken as Will arrived at the jury house. The moment the door opened, the energy shifted. Will stepped inside with cautious confidence and a tired smile. When his eyes met Rachel across the room, time seemed to slow. Their shared history did not need explanation. They had entered the game as allies and left it as enemies. Silence filled the room for several seconds. Will finally spoke and acknowledged that he never imagined facing Rachel this way. Rachel responded calmly, but her words carried the weight of disappointment. She asked him if the move was worth it. Will admitted the decision cost him more than he ever expected. The truth had followed him from the house into the jury. The days that followed were filled with tension that never fully disappeared. Rachel spent long mornings walking outside trying to clear her mind. Will often sat alone, writing and replaying his decisions. When they spoke, the conversations stayed focused on the game at first. Each discussion reopened the night of betrayal. Rachel described how the blind side shattered her sense of trust. Will listened and accepted the anger without defense. As new jurors arrived, the jury house came alive with voices and stories. Every new arrival brought missing pieces of the game puzzle. Alliances were exposed, promises were revealed as tools, deceptions were uncovered. With each revelation, Rachel and Will gained new understanding of the season they no longer controlled. The jury house became a living archive of strategy and consequence. Group discussions soon turned into heated debates. Loyalty and survival were questioned in every story. Rachel spoke passionately about how trust once broken could not be easily repaired. Will argued that fear often drove players to make ruthless choices. Their opposing views shaped how others saw the finalists still competing. The responsibility of the final vote began to settle heavily on their minds. One afternoon, the tension reached a breaking point. After an intense argument about who deserved to win, Rachel confronted Will directly in front of the group. She asked him if he would make the same move again, knowing the pain it caused. The room grew silent. Will stood slowly and admitted that the truth frightened him. After a long pause, he said, "Yes." He would still choose survival, but he would carry the weight of that choice for the rest of his life. Rachel listened with tears in her eyes and nodded. The honesty did not erase the wound, but it allowed healing to begin. The unlocked footage revealed moments of vulnerability rarely seen in the house. Rachel spoke about the pressure of returning to the game and the expectations placed on her. She admitted that strength often hid insecurity. Will shared his fear of fading into the background and his desire to prove himself. In the jury house, their masks slowly fell away. They were no longer competitors alone. They were people facing who the game had turned them into. As the weeks passed, something unexpected happened. Respect grew where anger once lived.
Rachel and Will began sharing stories about life beyond the house. They talked about family, dreams, and regrets. Laughter returned in quiet moments late at night. The rivalry that once burned hot softened into understanding. The betrayal was not forgotten, but it was no longer the only truth between them. With the arrival of later jurors, the responsibility of Rachel and Will as early members became clear. Their opinions shaped how newcomers viewed the remaining players. Every story mattered. Rachel struggled with the power of influence, knowing her pain could affect the final outcome. Will feared that his actions would define how the jury judged morality in the game. The jury house became both a place of judgment and self-examination. As the finale night drew closer, the tone shifted again. The anger that once filled the rooms faded into reflection. The jurors laughed together at strange habits from the house. They recalled moments of fear and joy. Rachel and Will were often found sitting together on the balcony, watching the ocean in shared silence. Words were no longer always needed. In one of the most emotional unlocked scenes, Rachel finally spoke about forgiveness. She said she did not know if she could ever fully forget what happened, but she was learning how to let go of the anger. Will apologized again, not as a player, but as a person. He admitted that strategy did not excuse the emotional damage he caused. The moment was quiet and deeply human. As the final vote approached, every juror felt the weight of their decision. Rachel evaluated the remaining players with a sharp but fair eye. She searched for meaning behind each move, not just dominance. Will approached the vote with intense self-reflection. He questioned what kind of gameplay deserved to be rewarded. Their connection through conflict had sharpened their sense of justice. The first look at the jury house closed with a final montage of moments that defined the experience. Rachel stood alone at the edge of the balcony, watching the sun lower into the sea. Will joined her, and they shared one last quiet moment before turning back inside. The jury house had changed both of them in ways the main house never could. Big Brother 27 Unlocked revealed that eviction was not the end of the game. It was the beginning of truth. Through Rachel and Will, viewers saw the emotional cost of strategy and the lasting impact of betrayal and forgiveness. The jury house was not a place of rest. It was a place of reckoning. As the finale drew nearer, one truth stood above all others. The winner of Big Brother would be chosen not just by numbers, but by memories. And those memories were shaped by every choice, every betrayal, and every moment of courage. Rachel and Will entered the jury house as rivals. They emerged changed by reflection and shared experience. Their journey proved that in a game built on deception, truth always finds its way into the light.